Marcelo, how are you doing?
Oh, doing great. No, yeah.
Well, terrific. Thank you. And I'm impressed with your marathon. You must be exhausted. But of course, I love to talk. And I really love the fact that you're focusing on wisdom for young people. That's a theme that's close to my heart in many respects. And it's the first program I've heard specifically dedicated to wisdom for young people. So thank you, Marcelo. So I'm going to focus on kind of two aspects of what I might have to share on wisdom for young people. On the one hand, there's the professional aspect, and the other hand, there's the relationship aspect. And I think those two categories cover a lot of territory. I think many young people are wondering about their future and how to create a life they love. And I would say that I have created a life that I love. I spend most of the time doing what I love, loving what I do, and I believe doing good in the world. And I feel blessed because if you can craft a life path where you do what you love what you do, and are able to have a positive impact, I think that's the best of all possible lives. I will also get to relationships because just part of wisdom, I think, is understanding the importance of relationships. I know when I was young, I was very often driven by passion and love and an excitement, and those are beautiful things. And I would say whether in a serious partnership, romantic partnership, especially if you have kids in a house, in a way you're kind of a small business and you've got managerial responsibilities and you have to work things out. But also in the business world, people joke that a business partnership is like marriage without the love. You still have to make decisions together, you still have to get things done together, and there will still be conflicts. So just with that kind of foreshadowing on the relationship side, I want to talk a little bit about my personal path and things I've learned along the way, principles I've followed. Then I'll return to the relationship side, and then if there's time, open it up for questions. So how did I get to be an educational entrepreneur who right now I'm creating expanseonline.co. It's a virtual education program designed for people who love learning and hate school. I personally love learning and I hate school. I was very good at school, straight A's, got into Harvard, all external markers of success. And yet as an adult, I've found that life is so much more fun and exciting. And part of that is if you pursue your interests, then you will enjoy what you do all day, every day. Just kind of going on the job versus entrepreneurship. And then entrepreneurship is a very broad category for me that includes nonprofit, for-profit, writing, speaking, consulting, range of things. But there have been points in my life where I've had a job in the sense that I go somewhere at 9 in the morning, I get out at 5, or maybe it's noon to 8 or whatever it is. And I've enjoyed jobs. It's okay. I have often like the people, but it's so much more empowering if you have control over your own time. If you decide when and where you do what you want to do. The flip side of that is you have no job security. You don't know where the next dollar is coming in from. I was working with a teacher decades ago, a public school teacher, and she said, how can you live not knowing where your next can of tuna is coming from? And, conventional teachers and regular jobs have secure jobs, they have pensions, they have benefits and so forth. But willy-nilly, that's not who I am, and I've enjoyed charting my own path. So what does it mean to follow interests? Well, first, I realized going way back to when I was a teen, and again, thank you, Marcelo, for thinking about how a teen sees things. I remember at one point I loved writing and I wanted to be a writer. And then I also remember having a class where we engaged in intellectual dialogue, where we argued about ideas and discussed ideas and explored philosophy. I loved that class. In neither case did I envision writing and Socratic dialogue as career possibilities. I went on into college pursuing my intellectual interests. I went on into graduate school pursuing my intellectual interests. But one of the things I began doing was reaching out to people to take advantage of opportunities where I was passionate. So for instance, even in college, I began to reach out to schools and offer to lead Socratic seminars. Socratic seminars, it's my specialty. I wrote a book, The Habit of Thought, From Socratic Seminars to Socratic Practice. It's leading these classes where we discuss ideas. So I loved it so much, I would reach out to people. And willy-nilly, I got a few opportunities to lead as a volunteer. And then eventually I got a paid gig after doing various volunteer initiatives. And I would say one of the most important things in my life, and going back to professional wisdom, is the cold call. Now it's typically via email, but a cold call email is so valuable. If you are looking at how to do what you want, how to do what you love, and you discover other human beings who are knowledgeable about what you love, who are passionate about what you love, who are engaged in activities around what you love, reach out to them. There's a man named Zach Slayback who has great resources on how to do a cold call email. You can't just reach out to them and say, pay attention to me. You have to show how somehow you're going to add value to their life, or at least bothering to respond to you. You should always be grateful and appreciative for the time of other people, because many of us are busy. I have an insane amount of emails, and you have to be respectful. But most people, even very busy, professional, often famous people, will respond to you if they know that you're sincere, that you're committed to adding value in some way. They want to support passionate young people. We all do. But I would say those cold call emails helped me more than, in some ways, more than any academic course. I think one of the problems, and one of the reasons I'm against school per se, I'm very much in favor of learning, developing high-level skills, writing skills, um, programming skills if you want to be a coder, coding or design skills if you want to be a web designer, whatever it is, you need skills for sure. You need high-level, world-class skills. But school tends to teach you that if you get a good grade in this course, you've got something. In the real world, you don't have something until you've added value to someone else or someone else's organization. Another book I'll recommend is Charlie Hohn's How to Be, or a Recession-Proof Graduate, How to Be a Recession-Proof Graduate. Hohn is great on focus on adding value, and you can volunteer in countless organizations, including for-profit organizations. And if you're really good at adding value, then they will eventually pay you. So another trick in the professional life is always to be worth more than you're being paid. And so you can reach out to these organizations and offer to do something for free, but do an incredibly good job. So I would say willy-nilly, I became an educational entrepreneur because I was passionate about what I did. I talked about it. I was enthusiastic. I was knowledgeable. I knew a lot about the Socratic dialogue, and people would reach out to me. Eventually, by writing and speaking, I had people reaching out to me to hire me, to have me speak, to have me lead workshops. And if you are good enough, Steve Martin, be so good they can't ignore you. If you're good enough at what you do, people will reach out to you. So think about creating a brand, creating an identity around who you are and what you're good at. And bit by bit, then I get better at selling myself. I reach out to lots of people. Getting good at being disappointed is great, because life will disappoint you a million times over. I often describe being an entrepreneur as getting punched in the gut every day and keep going. Winston Churchill famously described success as going from failure to failure without a lack of enthusiasm. And there's a lot of truth to that. I think no matter how wonderful you think you are, no matter what skills, no matter what credentials, no matter what contacts, sooner or later, somebody will not respond. Somebody will fire you. Somebody will criticize you. Someone will write or speak badly about you. Somebody will describe you as incompetent. People are different, and you would be the best you can be. Reach out in lots of directions. Do the best job you possibly can. Be as helpful and supportive to other people as you possibly can. And still, sometimes things don't work out. You got to be okay with that. And so I would say creating a positive attitude and the ability to roll with punches, so to speak, is absolutely invaluable. You gotta be able to have setbacks and just keep moving forward. I would say that any techniques you can use to become calmer and more serene in the face of setbacks and disappointment will be helpful. And not being afraid to take shots that seem like a long shot. Wayne Gretzky, the hockey great, said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so I also encourage people, what does it cost to reach out to somebody famous and important with an email with a project you got or an enterprise or whatever? But part of this is, as you consider reaching out to high contact, valuable people, valuable relationships, you need to become really great at thinking through, okay, what value do I have to offer? How do I position myself? How do I explain myself? And so I think the notion that you can simply reach out to famous people and your life will all of a sudden, be incredibly great is naive. You have to realize that relationships are critical in business and in success, more so, I would say, again, than degrees, credentials. Doing great work and adding value is critical, again, more so than credentials or whatever. But you have to find a way to kind of position whatever you have to offer with what other people need and value. And if you get really good at that sort of matchmaking between yourself and other people who might want or need you, then you can have extraordinary opportunities. And you can also have a lot of adventures, whether they fail or not. So I encourage people to be way more adventurous than school encourages them to be, to reach out to people, to think in a visionary way about visionary projects, to do their very best to follow through with integrity, commitment, passion, and talent. And then finally, to organize teams around yourself. So again, going back to the notion that uh, business is like a marriage without the love. Um, who you're working with and how you're working with them is absolutely essential. Anytime, there's a saying, we are an average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. If you have friends who make you better, you'll become a better, stronger, more capable person. If you have friends who drag you down, they will drag you down. If you get into a romantic relationship with somebody who makes you stronger, you'll have much more energy and power to do what you want to do in the world. If you become involved in romantic relationships where it's energy draining, then you can lose literally years of your life in a struggle with that relationship. And finally, in a business relationship, if you're with people who give you energy and help you become a better person and do better things, you will have a much higher probability of succeeding than if you're involved in relationships that drain your energy. So I often encourage people to go with delight, go with alignment, go with passion, certainly go with talent, but the talent has to be aligned with who you are and what you want to be. Part of the secret to doing what you love and loving what you do is having a daily experience of joy. And that sounds strange, but I know with my schools, my Socratic work, I absolutely love it. I know that I gather people around me with whom I enjoy working and enjoy spending time with. I always say life is too short to work with jerks. So if you're spending too much time with a jerk, you need to find a way to get out of there. And finally, part of being good at relationships is you need to get good at relationships. It's, I think, a common problem with people, and maybe especially young people, to blame other people too quickly when relationships don't work out. But conflict is real. Anytime you're doing important work, again, whether in a marriage or in a business relationship, there will be conflict. Other people don't see the world the way you do. Other people don't value the same things you do. Other people will act in ways that you wish they would not act. And how you deal with that conflict is essential to both happiness and success. So one routine for dealing with things that are difficult, I like the ideal, and it's an ideal, to ask for 100% of what you want 100% of the time. Be prepared to hear a no, and then go towards a win-win solution. And it's easy to say, but it's very difficult in many situations to ask for 100% of what you want 100% of the time. It's also very difficult to hear no. And then beyond that, very difficult to go back and in good faith and with love and conscientiousness, work towards a mutual win-win so that you're both better off, even in the face of whatever conflict, however deep and passionate the conflict was, to kind of move forward afterwards. So I'm trying to watch the time. I'm thinking we're getting close on to the 20 minutes. So maybe I'll pause and see if there are any questions either on the entrepreneurship, passion-driven, do what you love life, and or on the relationships that can help empower and enable such a life.
Well, Michael, I must say that your message is very strong, as in you're on brand, by being called Michael Strong. And I will definitely send you the story behind the Wisdom Accelerator. I managed to find a note that I wrote down in early 2018, which is the overall concept. It was called the Wisdom Academy for youth back then. I just switched with Accelerator because it sounded funkier and more buzzword compliant. And I'm very happy that I did switch. And one of the comments that I made in this note is that it should be almost like a school of philosophy without naming it so, because it'd just be scaring away anyone interested. If you say, hey, we'd like to come to philosophy school, I'll get like 0 takers. If I ask them to go to Davos during the World Economic Forum to have lots of fun and meet really interesting people, the reaction is slightly different. So let's just say far more positive. And one of the ideas was to follow the classic curriculum, the syllabus of trivium and quadrivium that you had back in the Roman days of rhetoric skills. And you still have quite a few old school universities and some schools as well teaching rhetoric and debate. Not that common. And I think it should be far more common. Like rhetoric, for instance, is something that people just don't care anymore. Like you're just writing those very brief text messages. You don't care about grammar, spelling, syntax, punctuation. And this reflects who you are. Like it basically sends a message that you're being careless, and you're likely to be careless with everything else that you do. And that really doesn't bode well to you getting a high-end job, right? No, people do care about those things, and especially if no one else is doing it, by doing it, you're standing out. So that's what we're trying to entice here and promote. And we don't try to fight the education system. I agree with you that, and I hope you agree with me, that education is very different from learning, right? Education is structured, is forced, is based on punishment. And if you fail the exam, your life is more miserable. So you better shape up or else. And what we're trying to do is learning through joy and curiosity. And the one thing they realize is that it doesn't matter how hard you try to educate someone, if their learning tap is closed, there's no learning happening. Right? You can have the best teachers, the best schools, the best topics. If the person doesn't want to learn, forget it. You're wasting your time. So I'd much rather try to open the tap to learning, which is a personal choice, is an individual decision, by saying this is fun, right? No, this is something that you want to do. No one is forcing you to be here. No one is forcing you to listen to this conversation. And yeah, no, it's exactly because I haven't seen anyone else doing anything related to making teenagers wiser faster that I spent about half of my living days nowadays putting time and effort into this, and it's been super successful and rewarding. We had like more than 300 speakers, 100 countries represented. We keep on doing that every month, and it is a big marathon, but I think that it generates a lot of value to society. So thank you so much for being part of it.
You're welcome. And just a few riffs. I know we're running out of time, but philosophy, it's only in the modern age that it's become disconnected from life. From roughly 500 BC to 300 AD in the classical world, Greece and Rome, the core of philosophy was, how should I live my life? And schools of thought like the Stoics and the Epicureans were dedicated to certain visions of how to live one's life. I think it's great that now Stoicism is somewhat popular, and there's a daily Stoic newsletter. And I do think that if young people are presented with the question of how to live my life and not preached to, that's why the Socratic way is always asking questions. I never tell anybody how they should live their life at all. I can share my experience, but when I'm with them, I usually ask them, what do you want? Do you want money? Do you want love? Do you want relationships? Do you want travel? Do you want fame? Do you want intellectual? Whatever you want. But then let's work together to figure out how you can be the person who lives the life you want to live. And just becoming more conscious. I describe my educational program as the conscious development of personal identity, which is a mouthful, but it's by means of asking questions and exposing young people to a very wide range of thought and ideas and experiences and activities I want them to become more conscious and deliberate and aware about what direction they want to take their life in. And I find that most people who are conscious and intentional about their life direction tend to live happier, more fulfilling lives. So it's a slow process, not in any rush, but I definitely congratulate you on the success of what you're doing, and also welcome anybody who's interested in helping to create learning as a more joyous experience for everyone to reach out to me, and yeah, use your best ability to write a great cold call email, and I'm happy to partner with people who are aligned and passionate.
Yeah, it's really great. And I just wrap it with the comment that philosophy means a love of wisdom, right? So not many people realize that that's the etymology behind the word.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining. It's really great. So we should definitely follow up. I'd like to know more about what you're doing and help you as much as I can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcelo. Take care.